Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome, friends and family from around the world, to the Energetic Life Now show. I am your host, Coach Eric Stenlake, and it is an honor and privilege to be here with you today. Whether this is the first time you're seeing this broadcast, whether you're a returner or you're going to catch the replay, I just am sending out a huge, huge warm welcome to everybody around the world and hope that all is well wherever you are. Today's broadcast is being brought to you by the Spanglish World and her networks on Zingo TV channel 250 and 251. Please remember that when you download the free Zingo TV app on your iOS and Android devices, that you'll leave us a like or a comment. We would really, really appreciate that. Zingo TV is also available on the Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Well, let me just say, wow. You guys know that I bring the best of the best guests, and I do not settle for less. Today is no different. I am so excited to have, and we're going to talk about it right in front of her, Lorna Gale, who is going to be with us on today. I am so stoked for this. Lorna and I had the opportunity to be on a parenting micro summit on Saturday that just was mind-blowing, amazing. And I'm like, Lorna, please come be on my show. And she was like, well, let me check my schedule. Okay, I can. And so she's here today, the wonderful, the fabulous, the amazing Lorna Gale. Thank you so much for being here. So excited to have you. Huge welcome to you. How's it going?
It's going really well, Eric. Thank you. And I'm so excited to be here and continuing with our conversation that we had on Saturday to find out what we're going to talk about today. I'm looking forward to it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, listen, to the audience that doesn't know who you are, where you are, what you're doing, why you're here, what's your passion, give us the whole background. Like, who is Lorna Gale? What makes Lorna Gale so amazing in what she does? Because you guys are going to love her as much as I do. Lorna, the stage is yours.
All right. Thank you. So I am here in BC, beautiful British Columbia in Western Canada. And I am here because of my unfolding story. And I'm excited to share with you some of those things that have brought me here. I'm a somatic sexologist. I am a spirit and sex alchemist in the feminine-led life. And I am an award-winning speaker. And I am one who is passionate about families and creating homes of harmony for children. My journey brings me coming from a beautiful home, loving family and community. And I was raised in a religious home. And interestingly, in that journey that I thought I would be in always, it ended up that I ended up being on a different journey of what took me on a road of what I call spirituality, which is not always the same. For me, it wasn't. And so for me, it was this journey of sexuality and spirituality. And so my work is really about bringing these together and supporting people at being at home in their bodies and their sexuality, having sexual freedom and spiritual wholeness. And that looks different for everyone. Certainly, I know in my experience, it came from raised, as I mentioned, in this home. And it wasn't until many years later that I realized how much the admonition of save yourself for marriage, how much that played a role in my own journey. And looking back, like on any type of looking back on a novel study or a movie, reflecting back on it, I see how that's all played such a beautiful, perfect role to bring me where I am right now. But certainly that led to this place of being disconnected from my own body, from my own sexuality, married as a virgin at age 18, but from sexuality. It wasn't until I realized how much. So I'm just getting a message. I'm not sure if it's still.
Yep, you're okay. We still got you.
Okay, good. It showed. It ended up that my journey being very disconnected. My husband at the time, I've been blessed to be married to two beautiful. My first husband was for 30 years, and I am in my beautiful marriage with my husband now for over 10 years. and going on. Uh, that my first husband, he said, "Why don't you find out what makes you feel good so that you can tell me?" Well, I didn't know. I had never explored myself. That had not been on my radar whatsoever. And he shared, and he did some search, and again, this is 40 years ago, doing some research and finding out, oh, you, like the majority of women, are non-orgasmic. Can you be content with that? And so this whole journey is kind of okay. I didn't know anything more. And it wasn't until the girls, that we had two beautiful daughters, and when they were out of the home, that I started to realize, no, it's time for me to really start to bring my attention from my raising of my family, which was my joy, um, to be able to be a mom and to be a wife, to be able to turn my attention now to me and to be able to find out, who am I? And so I did some courses, some trainings, different events that I went to try to explore. And for the first time, number one, at the age of 42, had my first orgasm. And then later on, at the age of 47, was able to acknowledge, number one, that I am a sexual erotic being, and that there was a lot of shame, a lot of disconnection. So I took one of the trainings that I took, actually took me into this place of a mirror meditation, where I was face to face with a mirror, and I was able to encounter the different levels of shame, self-loathing, disgust, real shame, and it even took me to this level of existential shame, the shame that I even existed. Once I could touch into and tap into that level of stored story or emotion, then I was able to open up and to, wow, this isn't this is so pure, it's so good, it's so right, it's not dirty and wrong and shameful like I thought it was. And it was this instantaneous 180-degree shift and change of my perspective, from getting gross out of seeing a young couple at Dairy Queen kissing, to now taking my experience of teaching in the school systems and then in energy work, and now bringing it into the sexual erotic things, to be able to support other people in feeling at home in their sexual bodies, their erotic being. And it's interesting. One of the quotes that has been very pivotal for me has comes from Audre Lorde, and she says, "We tend to think of the erotic as a quick, tantalizing sexual arousal. I speak of the erotic as that deepest life force energy that moves us in a fundamental way." And so, as I've been able to live into that through my own experience and bring that to other people, it really is about bringing this experience of who we are as sexual erotic beings and spiritual beings into this one aspect, and really looking at how women and men come together, how we really look at how, from my own experience, looking at, oh, beyond even female and male is feminine and masculine, and seeing, oh, we thought it was separate, but it's really here within us. So to be able to really embrace that. And why does this seem to be, why is it important? For me, it's as we can be at peace in our own bodies, as we can feel whole within our own bodies, that this creates an environment within our homes, even, that then children are able to be raised in a place where people are at peace and at home in their own unique expression of sexuality as spiritual beings. And then the children also now don't need to go through always the same experience that we did. I remember saying to my girls, when I realized, wow, I am just so disconnected from my sexuality, I remember taking them out at the ages of 10 and 11, 12 to the picnic table at the back, and just letting them know, hey girls, it's okay to masturbate. Because I knew, for me, I was so disconnected, that was not even on my radar. I didn't want them to go down the same road. And so to be able to create these homes of harmony, and it's not even just the home around us, but that home within us where we can be at peace there, that to me is really, really important.
Wow. Wow, Lorna, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, what it is that you do. And my goodness, I was connecting with so many things that you were saying, especially going back to my youth. And I think it sounds like we were kind of raised in the same systems, if you will, of which we talk about intimacy as dirty and
Yes.
you can't be intimate with other people and save yourself from marriage and the whole thing with that and to hear you describe the awakening and but there's so much here. Like my mind is just buzzing. I'm sorry. Really looking at and correct me if I'm wrong, the energy exchange, right, between two beings, with that in that creation of that experience, if you will. I'm wondering if you can elaborate a little bit more on that, about what it is in the energy exchange, if you will, and how that presence and oneness, the spirituality comes into play within that sexuality. And maybe I'm not saying it right, and hopefully you understand what I'm saying because my mind is just like, wow, this is incredible because I'm really, really connecting with this.
Mm. Well, I'll respond, and then if there's still some questions that I haven't really answered, then we'll circle back around for sure. I remember years ago, I was driving in a rural area, and it had just rained, and there was this beautiful, beautiful rock in the ditch, and then in the ditch there was this beautiful puddle of water, and this rock was so perfectly reflected in that in that water in the ditch. And I just sat there, literally, I sat there because I was at the stop sign, fortunately, but I just sat there and I looked at it, how beautiful it was. And since then, and that was again 35 years ago, and since then, the aspect of mirror has been very, very prominent in my own experience and what I teach. That when we look at a mirror, we're actually looking at not what is, but the opposite of what is. And I see that we are both physically and energetically living in a mirror, so to speak, where we think that spirit is separate than human, and we think that male and female are separate. And it's created this beautiful, beautiful human experience to be able to, wow, what's it like when two become one? And I say, what if one has never been two? There's just the experience of it so that we can know what it's like. And so this aspect of when we are in this experience of as if there are two, but wow, here's female, here's male, and sometimes it's male and male, and sometimes it's female and female, and sometimes it's forget the gender whatsoever. It's here's these bodies coming together. When it comes together in presence, that it is in this, as you say, this energy exchange, and even more so, it's just energy coming together and saying, here's the oneness beyond the physicality and including the physicality, that here's this oneness that's right there.
Wow. Thank you for explaining that. That was really great. I needed a second just to really take that in. I love that explanation about the oneness. Um, us both being educators and of course working with families in what we do in our spaces. Um, Tell us a bit about what I mean. You were explaining about your daughters and having that open, communication. And I love that you use the word harmony, right?
Mm.
And bringing that understanding to your own kids. Because I remember, back when I was a teenager, my parents handed me a book and said, "Here you go, good luck." Right? You got any questions? Let us know. Like, really? Like, I'm gonna, I'm gonna ask you guys questions? Are you kidding me? And I think with my wife and I, we really wanted to create that openness,
Mhm.
for our kids, and from early on, talking about what was not shameful, what was not looked at and thought of as being right versus wrong, but in the discovery of them and who they are. Um, So I'd love to go into this a bit more
Mhm.
within the education, whether with your own kids or as an educator now working with families, however, whatever space that's going to show up in.
Mhm. For me, it comes back to um, feeling at home in our bodies. And it goes back to when we were children. And I say by divine design because I look at things as a story as well, is this lived experience, how everything that has come before is either helping us to hide our true essence, creating these amazing experiences and sometimes some traumas and these losses and all of these things, this up and down. And then when we come back, sometimes we get to the end of the life and that's sort of what it's been and it sort of resolves itself. And other times we get to almost have a turnaround and look back and say, oh, look how everything played out, how everything perfectly showed up. And back when we were children, and I've had opportunity, so I'm a grandma, and I've had opportunity to actually live this story that I've told long before even my grandchildren were born. But grandma comes to visit and she says, and she's getting ready to go. She lives a long ways away and she's come to visit. And mom and dad say, hey, little one, come and say goodbye to grandma. She's going. I don't want to. Come and say goodbye to grandma. Oh, no, you need to put down what you're doing and come and see grandma. Say goodbye to her. I don't want to. And it doesn't even really matter why, but I don't want to. Look, grandma, she looks sad. Look at her. You don't want grandma to feel sad, do you? Or if you don't, grandma's old, she might die by the time we, that you might not see her again. And so all of these ways from a time where a little child knows, hey, I'm loving what I'm doing. They're just so present to what they're doing that when when we start to override, and it's not by ill intent, it's by how do we create this harmony in relationships. But it's actually really not harmony if somebody's wants and needs and autonomy and sovereignty and soul are overridden, where one somehow becomes, oh, it doesn't matter, you're important. So we have guilt, shame, um, all of these various things that we start to overlay that now on a child's willingness and ability to tune into themselves. And then those become things that become overridden and reinforced as they go through life. Different stories where, oh, what you said wasn't important, or no, you were responsible for somebody else. And I'm going to say this really important. I feel this is really important, is that a child should never be responsible or thought to be responsible or held to be responsible for an adult's emotional well-being. So, this idea of if a child feels that wants to nurture a parent, like they can see a parent is sad or something, and they go give a hug, that's one thing. But to be able to say, I'm sad, can you comfort me? It's all of a sudden, oh, I'm responsible for an adult's well being. I see it, it's our role as parents to be able to allow that child to be able to say, would you like to give a hug? Or would you like a hug? And to be able to allow them to really be in that place of what is true for them and keep their North Star, their inner compass true and clear. So I'm not sure. I'm just going to pause for a moment, see if there's anything else there. So I see it that when it comes time for sex education, it begins at infancy, where we start to do that, because when it comes time for their teens and all of a sudden we're trying to teach them what it is to, okay, there's going to be things that happen with bodies, with emotions, with somebody saying this and that, when we have had that opportunity to really reinforce as early on as we can, and it's never too late. So to be able to say, oh, I didn't do it when they were children, no, it's not. Start now, create that line of communication to let them say, you know what, I get it. Because I say consent is a feeling. It's not, oh, if they say yes or no, those are expressions of what is being felt inside. Because consent feels like harmony. That's what harmony feels like, when everything is aligned. And I often use those little bike locks that have sometimes the chain, but they are with the little numbers. In fact, I've got one right here. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Put it up here. And my husband is watching here, and he knows the combination. There we go. Okay, let's see if I can see it with my glasses off. There we go. All right. So this is one of the examples of it. So it's one that has the numbers on it, and you can see that it's all well opened up, right? I can open it. And when those numbers are lined up, I can open it and I can close it. But if one number is even a small bit out of alignment, I can't open it. I also, when it's open, if that number is out of alignment, I can't lock it. So I can't have that ability to have that freedom of movement. And so I use this as an example to say that when we are in consent, things are all lined up inside. It's all in alignment. And helping our children to feel what's in alignment is a way to be able to, from an early age, to be able to support them in knowing what they want to do and what not. We start to reinforce that, so that as they come into some harder decisions where they have a little bit more of the sense of peer pressure, they are kind of like, no, I'm not going to, or yeah, I'd like to. So to be able to explore, and this is one of the things that I do with individuals and couples when I'm working with them, is to really start to find out, what does your yes feel like? What does your no feel like? What does it feel like when you say one or the other? And I take them through various practices. And then working with couples, when I work with couples, it's be able to do this, what I call the touch of consent. And this comes from my lineage of Joseph Kramer, who is the creator of Sexualogical Bodywork, which is my professional training. And then Betty Martin, who launched off of his 3-minute game, developed the wheel of consent, and I call it the touch of consent. And then when I work with things from a more of a female power exchange piece with males and females, I take it into a cube of consent. But when they have this thing of, what kind of touch would you like, or whatever, it's kind of like, wow, to be able to be asking that. So we get to reinforce some of these things with our children. And I feel like it's never too late for parents to be able to face into and start to reclaim that piece and start to anchor in again, what does consent feel like and how does that show up in their lives?
Yes. Oh, thank you. I'm taking notes over here. Thank you so much for that. I do have a question. As we're talking about the alignment, especially when we're saying, if let's go back to, or let's start when the kids are young, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if parents around the world, you guys are watching this, this may be that impact point for you right now. To really kind of understand this from the early childhood perspective. So we've got this alignment that we want to help them discover, because that then allows them to have that freedom and that power of choice. Yes.
That's the way I see it.
And so from early on, it's like, okay, go give grandma a kiss, and she's getting ready to leave, right? I mean, I was raised like it. You didn't have a choice. You got your butt to the door and you gave grandma a kiss, or auntie or somebody. And it didn't matter what you felt like.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter if there was alignment in that. We were told and we did. And so for this, we're saying this needs to be their choice. It needs to be their alignment. It needs to be what they're saying their yes, the yes touch is then, right? Giving that hug or giving that embrace. And so help me with that, if you will, Lorna. Like how can we really help parents to understand in that early childhood as kids are like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that, and set that stage so we can walk them through the aging process. So then when they're teens, they're going to be in situations, then maybe potentially in a dating situation or whatever. And you said already, my no is no and my yes is yes. And Let's continue to unpack that a bit, if we will.
Yeah, sounds good. And Eric, I would say, continuing from what we talked about in our micro summit on Saturday, is that aspect of listening to our children. When we look at our role as parents, sometimes there's this idea, and again, coming from an educational perspective, right? We think, okay, the children are blank slates. That's what we're taught, right? The children are blank slates. It's our job as parents to make sure that they have everything come together and provide the right things for them, uh, rather than it is this aspect of allowing them to unfold who they are, and we get to be witness to support that. And so coming back to this aspect of um, helping them to shape, determining their choices. Like there's certain things where from an early age, it's kind of what clothes do you want to wear? Well, I want to choose that. I remember my girls, one of them at the time, she just had everything just match, match, match. And the other one was just all over, like stripes and this colors and all over. And they were totally different. And interestingly, they've kind of changed around now as they grew up. It's different that way. Uh, but I think to be able to give them those opportunities as much as possible to be able to be in that place of choice. And with that comes those consequences, like letting them to know what are the consequences, natural and logical consequences of theirs, not as a punishment, because, and maybe you as well, I was raised in a context of punishment. Like we were raised by being punished. Oh no, steer this way. Okay, no, this way, right? Rather than being this nurturing, okay, you want to go this way? Okay, let them experience what it's like if you make this choice. Here's what happens. Does that work for you? No? Okay, what else do you need to do so we can go a different way? So we're developing those decision making skills, helping them to find out their own resources rather than this idea of we're putting things into them. We're helping them to find out what's within. And as parents, what an incredible opportunity for us to be able to be witness to and supportive roles in that. Like, wow, that's amazing.
Oh, I love that, Lorna. Thank you. What one thing that really that just popped out, and by the way, I've got my notes from Saturday right here, so because I knew
Right.
we were going to be
Yeah.
jumping into this, which
Good.
was really awesome. We spent a lot of time talking about listening to our kids and why listening to our kids is so important. And I can vividly remember when my kids were small. Only a couple times the boys. We have three kids, two boys and a girl. The boys definitely having a feeling. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but a intuition enough to know that someone in their proximity they were not aligned with.
Mm,
And so from that, they said, I do not want to be near that person. That person's, kids say, they're creeping me out. Right.
yes.
And so listening to that intuition and of course, as a dad of a daughter, Papa Bear here, he was very in tune with that from her. And early on,
Hmm.
I stressed that to her to really be in tune and in touch and on guard with herself. That if
Hmm.
she ever felt that she was not in that alignment, not in that harmony, and it was something that was in proximity, that she needed to make the choice to correct that so that she would be able to feel okay and feel safe, right?
Hmm.
Because I think it comes down to a feeling of safety. If I'm not aligned in this, I don't feel safe in this situation, in this relation with this other person or in this space.
Hmm.
And I wonder what we can tell our parents in this. Like, how do we convey that to kids by listening and really understanding? Because we we got to front load that, right? We can't expect to get into the situation and then go, oh, and by the way, you should have been here and doing this. No, front load that situation. Listen, kid, if you ever get into that situation, you ever feel like this, here's some options,
Hmm.
choices to get yourself in a safe space. I wonder if we could go into that for a little bit.
For sure. And I what you just mentioned there just brought up that thing of helping the children to know that we always are there for them. We have your back. We are there and you're not alone. And I think that's a message that carries out even into adulthood, right? People want to know I'm not alone. And so to be able to that's one of the gifts of being a parent is that role we get to play. Just going to pause here for a moment. Can you say I'm just feeling that there's something. Can you say it again in another way? There seems like there's something else that needs to be added into your question and for our conversation.
Yeah. So, how can we help parents understand the importance of listening
Yeah.
to front load conversation around if they ever feel a certain way, whether it's the intuition or I don't feel in alignment, I don't feel safe, if you will, that this emotion of not being safe is coming up. How do we? What are some tips and tools that we can give our parents around the world?
Okay. Two things that come up, and it seemed like it was this one is the one that needed to be invited in. Was that aspect of sometimes as parents we think I can get it right or I can get it wrong, and there can be a paralyzing fear of what if I don't? What if I can't support them as best I can, or it's not what they need? And so that's an invitation for parents to say just being present with your child is what they most need to be there. It's not about right or wrong. And so the listening then comes into play. It seems to me as well that a key in this is that there are so many things that in many situations, whether it's sexual, whether it's in terms of relationships, whether it's what's happening at school, that sense of accomplishment about like academics, whether it's skills, all of those things, there can be this sense of there's a lot of things that feel like, oh, I don't want to feel that. We don't know how to address and feel feelings that arise. It's often easy when we're feeling something and we don't know how to handle it, we often project. So an example of this would be and I remember one of my times when my one of my daughters was we were in a store and she was quite small, and I think probably some parents will be able to relate to this, that she got lost and she was in the we were in the clothing department. She got lost and I could not see her, and there was this panic feeling. I did around, and I looked and I could not find her. And when she finally did it, there's this sense of, where did you go? Why did that type of a thing? And it shows up as anger, but it was really fear. And so there's a lot of times where we don't know, and it comes from adult or childhood all the way up, and it shows up sometimes as we as parents that we don't even know how to deal with and feel into what's there as well. So I think it's really important, number one, that parents do their inner work to be able to do that so that they can show up even more fully for their children. But if you haven't done it yet, that's okay because your children are going to give you that opportunity to do that. Um, so being there and listening to our children, listening, that oftentimes when we start to just listen, that what seems to be the surface, what's okay, this happened. Okay. And what else? And they start to go down deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper to get now to the core of something that when you look back, you think, how is that connected? And it doesn't matter because in that moment, that listening, that presence is what allowed us to go back so they could say and acknowledge, yes, is what I'm feeling. That's the gift of listening, of presence that we get to give our children. So it's not about right and wrong. Can we just be there? Asking some questions, some tender questions or some gentle questions, sometimes some hard questions, but allowing just holding that space, being present with them to allow them. And it might get uncomfortable for parents because it oftentimes when something that's still within ourselves that is wanting and ready to be healed, it'll rattle a lot with us when it's showing up in our children or somebody else, but in our children. It's kind of like, oh, okay, just stay here. I'll deal with my own stuff later on. How can I be present to my children? So that's where it's not this parenting. Here we've got the answers, and I'm going to show you the way. And nope. It's kind of like, oh, here's your journey. Let's travel together. And oh, I'm learning that. And oh, I get to heal this. I get to experience this. And wow, we get to do this together.
Oh yeah, I love that. That was so great, Lorna. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
One of there's a relationship coach, and she's been I've seen her speak a few times, Tammy Tintilla, and her whole thing is being curious, not critical.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I know for me, I have grown so much as a parent, as an educator, to not be just straightforward, questioning, how was your day? Blah, blah, blah. The normal questioning that, we give as parents, and to really get present, right? To really show up for my kids is me asking a number of questions. And this is true for me. So friends and family around the world, as you guys are watching this, see where this shows up for you, because I know this is how it shows up for me. If I show up and I don't know what the terminology I'm looking for is, asking questions that are more business-like, if you will. Did you do your homework? How was your test? Did you do this? Did you do that? Check items. Did you do this? No, but if I show up really in that space of being present for them and asking them questions that, how are you feeling today? What was something positive that happened today? Did you see the sun shining today? Oh my gosh, did you get a chance to be out in the sun? It felt so good today. Like we're coming out of the winter blues. I don't know about up by you. It's still probably cold up there. But down here in Southern California, the sun is shining. And it feels so good. And it's like that spring awakening. I just love that. And so asking those things and listening to my kids, because they are so in tune with themselves, they will say yes or no, typically, to questions, right? And so then I'll ask, well, you said no. What am I not seeing? What am I not understanding? What am I not hearing? Right. And so if I can keep the doors of that communication open and flowing, that's where we really get into some great conversations, because once they know that I'm not there to ask them about their day and how successful they're being with their job or their schoolwork or whatever it is, right? And they know that I'm just there for them, that's where we just have some really, really great conversations. And I love that, because as we're saying, let's create this harmony. That's the harmony. That's the beauty in the relationship of this parent-child relationship, is when I can get into that space and understand it's not about me. And I want to just uncover them and discover them and have them open up to really what's on their hearts and minds. And somebody, one of our Facebook users, thank you so much, said questions are the answer and the connection. Thank you so much for saying that. Beautifully said. Thank you. So Lorna, as we're talking about this listening, we talked a lot about this on Saturday, about it's creating opportunities, it's creating possibilities, it's creating choices that they get to uncover and discover. So I'm pulling on these ropes here. What else do we have that we can chat about? Because I know you're dying. Like, I see you're like, oh, I'm going to tell him this. I'm going to tell him this. It's going to be so good.
I'm not. We'll see what comes up, because I'm not sure. There's something. You're right. There's something that still wants to come forward, and I'm going to leap into what you just talked about. The listening is that sometimes there's this aspect of, we listen to the words, but what's behind the words, what's underneath, and our ears are hearing one thing, and what are our eyes hearing? From body language, those various things that way. So there's, on this theme of listening, there's just so many ways of listening, and energetically, like, okay, energetically, it doesn't feel like this is what is, so it creates another opportunity to listen, to ask those questions. And I remember, the yes no questions, right? It's kind of like, oh, yes, no. But what are those? Leaving those open ended questions. What did you do today? What was your favorite part of today? Those kinds of questions. That how did you feel when you did the test? Or, those kinds of things. What's it feel like when you got to ride your bike by yourself, into town for the first time? Those kinds of questions that start to, yeah, like you said, it's not just about check, check, check off all these different functional things, but coming into those ways of connecting. And yeah, somebody says here, listening with our ears and also with our hearts. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, so beautiful.
Yes, I love that.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
And it's great because I'm working at a middle school. I love middle school. And if any of you guys are on this call today because you said you're going to be there, I'm giving a big shout out. Sixth period English. Hope you guys are doing everything that you need to be doing and getting your essays done. You know what I'm talking about. I love these kids. I absolutely adore these kids. And I hope that they feel the genuineness of our relationship because we get to have these kinds of conversations and they will open up and they will say things to me because they feel that I'm a trusted individual, right? It's all about building that trust. And even with my own kids, right? If I'm just going through these hardline questions, bing, bang, boom, that is not building that trust. I'm not creating that safe space with them. And like our listener said, listening with our eyes, our ears, and our hearts, right? We've got to get to the root of what it is that they're saying or trying to say. If they're closed and they don't know how to express themselves, be patient in that. Be okay with the silence. And that's so weird. If you're talking and all of a sudden somebody was silent, you're like, what do I do now?
Hmm.
No, sit there and be and continue to be in presence with them.
That's true. That's true. One of the things that feels like it's coming up now is to share it in preparation for and to, eager anticipation for our time together today. One of the things that came up as well around that idea of feeling, and I think this address or it uh, it applies to the children, to our children, our students, as well as to ourselves. That oftentimes when there's something that we don't want to feel, we get busy. So when there's something and I know this from my feelings, okay, there's something agitated. I'm feeling something inside. Okay, I'm gonna sweep the floor, or I'm gonna, get out the computer. I'll do something else, go for a walk, whatever. Rather than just, okay, can I just go in and just feel what's there? And that applies to whether we call something even pleasurable or painful or uncomfortable. It's something that's there, and in jewelry stores where they've got the vibration, this ultrasonic for cleaning jewelry. It's it vibrates so fast it cleans it off really well. And sometimes there can be that sense of something that when we feel agitated inside, it's because there's something ready to move, something that's ready to clear, to be released, to be felt. And so when we can just, okay, can we just feel into that and just let the feel, because it doesn't even matter what it's called, because the labels are what keep us from feeling what's absolutely here. We come into the world, taking in the world through our senses, and then little by little, we start to get things labeled like, "Hey, baby, here's some food. Here's mommy. Here's daddy," and we start to now attach this sense of this as this label. And that goes with feelings as well. Oh, you're feeling hungry, or you're feeling angry, you're feeling sad, you're feeling rejected, you're feeling lonely. It's kind of all of those things. It's kind of like, no, those are the labels. I am feeling this. It's only been called that. And so it seems to me, with my own experience, we can really just be in this place of being whatever's there, no matter how uncomfortable or how expansive it might feel. Can we hold and be in that sense of feeling what's right there for all of us? Our children, giving them that gift of helping them to feel what's there. And in that place, then we can talk and communication happens. And from that place, their North Star, their inner compass, is activated even more.
So yeah, this is the, oh my gosh, this is so great. Okay, so now I'm a kid, right? And I'm feeling like I'm not aligned with my true north and my north star, right?
Mhm.
And I have these emotions coming up and I'm having these feelings coming up and I'm not sure what to do with them. I'm not sure how to express it. What are some things that I can do as a kid or a teen or a young adult to really bring myself back to that place of understanding why I'm thinking or feeling this way?
Having a trusted adult or adults is always key, whether it's family, whether it's an adult friend, a neighbor, somebody, a teacher such as yourself, somebody at school that is that trusted person to be able to do that. Sometimes peers can be that as well because they're often in a similar type of a thing. So to be able to say, okay, I'm going through this. And it's a thing of helping to educate kids, helping them to know it's okay to go through that. So the earlier we allow them that gift of acknowledging what's here and working through it rather than shoving it down, tamp it down, pretend it doesn't work because it's going to come up later on. So let's give them the advantage that maybe some of us didn't have in terms of dealing with some of those things and feeling into them. Because oftentimes it just wants to be the energy just needs to be acknowledged and it can shift, it can move.
Yeah, and I love that you said that the energy we can feel it, right? And that it might need to be shifted and moved. Because today we were just talking about in third period, we were doing a mindfulness
Mm,
series, and we were talking about how learning how to be present in our bodies enough to feel that emotion and where it's coming from. And we
mhm,
talked about kind of having that pit of your stomach feeling or feeling in your chest, or sometimes we feel it in our neck or our shoulders,
yeah,
or tingling sensation in our extremities. And so I think that as we're becoming more aware of these feelings, we then can get really clear as to where this is coming from,
mhm,
and and what's happening there.
yeah.
How would you give us some tips on that?
I agree that the importance of, from a somatic place, being able to feel what's happening in the body. So giving those opportunities for just tuning in, just letting the kids feel what's happening. Take a moment. Okay, just listen because oftentimes when there's something that's happening, even to just bring your awareness to it, it doesn't need to have a cognitive experience. Okay, just take a moment. So that quiet your body and breathe. Take a moment and, you know, touch onto your fingers, just squeeze your fingers. As we can start to bring our awareness back into the body, that it starts to shift away from holding on to the thought of what it is, and it can start to just resolve. The nervous system starts to relax and things can then move more easily. So it's often this idea that we don't always have to cognitively know what it is. We don't have to try to solve it or figure it out. Sometimes it just needs to be acknowledged, to be felt. The example that I give is a little child who comes and, whispers, tap, 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 and we give it our attention. They kind of, they run away, and they're happy. But to ignore it, then it can be they start to tap, tap, tap a little bit harder and, kind of go away, tap, tap, tap. And then it just needs to be acknowledged. And if we don't acknowledge it, it will grow like it's tapestry and crayon on the wall, marker on the wall. But to be able to just give it our attention as soon as we notice it.
Ah, beautiful. I love it. I love it. Lorna, I thank you so much for being here today. This has been absolutely amazing. Where can everybody find you on social media or websites?
Sure. On social media, I am on Facebook and LinkedIn, Lorna Gale on both of those. And I do have yeah, that's probably the best way in an email, Lorna at lornagale.com. And those are probably the easiest ways, and I can connect with people from there.
Beautiful. And also, you're a member of the Empowered Family Network on Facebook. Woohoo! So if
Yeah.
you guys haven't had a chance to jump over to my Empowered Family Network Facebook group, come join us over there. You can ask Lorna questions there. Also, is a great place to find her too. I can't thank you enough for being here today, Lorna. This was absolutely amazing. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Absolutely fantastic. Social media, you guys know where to find me on either on Energetic Life Now or the Empowered Family Network. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check it out at spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks you guys so much for being here. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Eric.